Aaron Beelner, and Eric B. And you're listening to the Diary of a Little Man's podcast. All right, here we are, another podcast / vlog YouTube session as well. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, thank you. If you guys are listening to us on all the podcast platforms, thank you again for doing that. We are going to talk about True Colors today, but we're going to finish. We're going to start off talking about the prom as we started with last week, and we got carried away and went different directions. But that's how podcast and talking real is. Sometimes we'll stay on the track. Sometimes we will go off the track. So bear with us. Oh, man. All right. We'll get this going. My name is Eric B.
And I'm Aaron Beelner.
And this is the Diary of the Little Man's podcast.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Hope everyone had a great week. Another week down the books for us.
Yeah.
And Aaron, you want me to go finish off what we were talking about last week?
I wanted, well, you had said, the Tale of Two Cities. And
yeah.
I mean, that's we have to finish that. I mean, I'm so intrigued. I want to know the other city.
All right. So as I said last week, I live in San Francisco. I went to a San Francisco high school, but the majority of my friends were, all the Filipinos hung out was in a city called Daly City. My cousin lived in Daly City. All my friends lived in Daly City. So they went to Daly City high schools. So there's one high school called Westmore. They were like, hey, you got to go to our prom. You got to go to our prom. And I'm like, well, I'll go. But, I didn't know any females at Westmore. So I'm like, you guys got to find me someone to go with. And I even said, I don't mind going alone as long as I get to hang out with my friends, because that was the whole intention, was to go hang out with them. Right.
Right.
So they were like, oh, we found you a friend. We found you someone to go with. She lives in Vallejo, which is like north of San Francisco. It's another city outside of San Francisco.
Yeah, I know where that is.
And they're like, it's like, we'll take care of her ticket. You just gotta, buy her corsage and, all that stuff. Right. I'm like, all right. So before text messaging, you're calling each other on the phone. So she's calling me, asking me what color, what cummerbund am I going to wear? What color bow tie am I going to wear? So we came up with like a maroon color.
Okay.
So I said, okay, we'll get a maroon color. So it's like 2 weeks before the prom, we were hitting it off. We're talking to each other like every other day. And I'm like, all right, cool. Maybe this could lead into something, right? I'm like, all right. I wasn't thinking about that, but the way we were talking, I was like, all right, if this leads into a prom kiss, then I'll be satisfied, right?
Sounds good. Yeah.
So we all meet up, and back then there was only a few of them driving. I wasn't driving yet. So we hop in someone's car. I meet her for the first time. It was a blind date, straight blind date. And I look at her, and she's not bad looking. But if you guys are from the Bay Area, the Filipinos in Daly City, the Filipinos in San Francisco, and the Filipinos in Vallejo have a different attitude. And her attitude was a little, I don't want to call it, it was a little street.
Okay.
She was
all right.
street, she was our age. She went to school. She was in high school. But when we got to the place to go eat, to go to the restaurant, she opens up her purse. She takes out a cigarette and she's smoking. I'm like, whoa. Wow. Yeah, exactly. Wow. And then she's like,
high school prom.
And she's like, we got to find someone who's 21 and over so they can buy us a drink. And I'm like, wait, we're drinking? She goes, well, I got a little flask, but it's not enough for all of us. I'm like, whoa. All right. All right. So my expectation went from, oh, I'm going to like this girl to, So we get to the prom. The first thing you normally do when you get to the prom is after coat check, we want to take pictures because we don't want, you don't want to be sweaty when you're taking the picture. So we try to get in line for the pictures. She sees all her friends that I don't know who these people are. Again, remember, this isn't my high school. I only went with my friends. She sees all her friends and she's like, I'll be right back. I'm like, all right. I didn't see her till the very, very end of the night. Yeah.
Wow.
And I told everyone's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, Eric. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, you know what? If I paid for her ticket, I'd be really upset.
Yeah.
But the fact that you guys paid for it, I go, you guys are suckers. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, right. So I have a question.
Yeah.
What condition was she in at the end of the night?
My God.
Was she inebriated? Was she Was she? So she's, has cigarettes, got a flask, wanting more drinks, whatever.
Yeah.
I can't fathom that she was in a state to operate a motor vehicle, if you will, or any of that, right?
No, yeah, she's lucky she had a friend that lived inside. Her friend lived like in Daly City, right? So her friend was like, all right, your friend lives in Daly City. You can go ahead and stay with your friend because I'm not, no one's driving you back to Vallejo because that's way too far. When we were taking pictures in line, right when she cut out, we were waiting in pictures in line. I'm thinking she's going to come back. I'm going to get my prom picture. Some other gal comes out of the bedroom, is like, oh my God, there's these girls in the bathroom and I think they're getting high. And then my friend and my cousins were like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was your date.
Oh God.
And I was like this, you know what? It probably is her. It probably is her. Yeah.
Yikes. Oh God.
Yeah.
So you passed on the prom kiss.
Oh yeah. I decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and just, I'm going to have fun without her. I'm going to have fun because the whole purpose again was to be there with my friends.
So it was an unintentional stag, which then probably had more time. You had more fun. Yeah.
Oh no, it was fun because the way these guys, and again, these guys are my true friends. These guys, well, back then they were my true friends. When there's a song by Earth, Wind and Fire called The Reasons.
Yeah. I know the song very well.
They were dancing in their couple. And I said, F this, I'm not going to let this chick ruin this prom for me. So I started dancing with, it was like kind of like I don't want to use the word threesome, but I was
right. I know what you mean.
Dancing with them. And then for some weird reason, the whole thing became a circle. And then the couples were like in a circle and I was in the middle. And they were one by one. One girl would leave their prom date and dance with me. It was fun. It was fun, and we were all doing it for fun. And it just made me realize like this girl never wanted to go to the prom with anybody. I think she just wanted to go because she was trying to meet up with her friends there. So
right, right, wow, yeah, that would be pretty intense. And the fact that right away, cigarette, flash.
Yeah.
It's going to progress downhill from there, and I don't know when did I'm trying to think of like we had to, and I'm telling you probably more than, well, I'm just saying what it is. I went to a parochial school. And so there was a service, like we attended a mass service or church service before the prom.
Wow. Okay.
And so then you had to do that. And if I remember correctly, and then we went to dinner and then you would appear at the dance. And I think you could appear, like at 7:00, but of course the cool people didn't come in until 8-ish or whatever. Yeah. And so there was usually this cafeteria just vacant for an hour, with music, starting to pulse in. And, by the end of that time, because I remember there being like a table or a couple tables with like punch and maybe some type of food, sustenance, what have you. But it wasn't, a bar or anything in a parochial school of minors. And so I'm pretty naive. I was fairly naive at that time and aloof of what all the super cool people were probably doing. And I don't remember, we would have been, because it was so small town and everybody knew everyone. Yeah. That's the other thing. When you have that amount of people, everyone knows everyone, to a fault at times, sometimes it's great. There are some wonderful things I will always cherish about small town and being raised on a farm. And there are some things that aren't so great. Like I said, teach their own on what you find, favorable, but everyone's in everyone's business. And the reason I mention that is when you have that many students or that few students, you can't get away with certain things. Yeah. And so I'm sure there were some who did. I'm sure there was the flask or, somebody had something, but it's rather obvious. Yeah. It's not like you can blend into hundreds and go, oh yeah, no one will notice, because everyone knew everyone's name and who they were with and dating and all those fun details. So when you're talking about what you say, you take this date and all of a sudden, boom, she's here and there, and then you don't see her till the end of the night. And you could be, I'm not speaking on your behalf, but I'm assuming you were distracted and having fun and doing your own thing, whatever, right?
Yeah, I was.
And not even really notice.
Yeah.
Where if I had, I told you the woman from Hialeah, and then the woman from, at that time she was 17, the girl from my neighboring town. If they had up and vanished, everyone would know
where they are.
Like everyone would know. Yeah. Okay, and so it's not as inconspicuous. And so that whole time is so crazy. But the fact that you have I love the idea that you have this version of a prom and then the other city's version of a prom, and they're on polar opposite ends.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, when I mentioned last week with my prom in San Francisco, I went with someone that I was comfortable with in school, and she was semi-popular, like she hung out with the it crowd also. But when we got to the prom, she was respectful, and she's like, "Oh, this is my and it wasn't even a date. This is just like my prom partner. This is who I'm going to the prom with." And, we acted more like friends than we did anything else, and we had a blast. And I think a lot of people, when they go to proms, and this is even till now, I see the kids, I have 2 teenage boys, they're so into, I need a prom date, I need someone to go with, that they forget, hey, you don't really need to go anywhere to have fun. You can go have fun without them,
Right. And I think that at that age, again, I don't know everything, and I don't want to sound like my parents, and we all end up sounding like our parents.
We all end up sounding like our parents. Exactly.
I mean, it's an infinite loop of generations. At that age, that part of it, to have the date or to have the person to attend with, it's that need for third-party validation, and it's that need for people, your peers will judge you and rank you, if you will, or rate you, how cool you are or not cool based on whether or not you have a date. And again, like I said last week, when it came down to it, those who went on their own, they seemed to have the best fun, and had no responsibilities as far as, we've got to do this and we've got to do that, and walk through certain traditions that a couple going to the prom would do. It's like, and that was as you go through life and you go back, look back at things that were very important and monumental, it's funny how inconsequential they are now, and it's
the best part about that whole thing is, you go to your post prom party or dinner or wherever you go, you end up like at a Denny's or something like that, right? And the best part about it was, I was there, I was with my group of friends, but I didn't have to worry about paying for another person. It was just like, this is me. And everyone's like, "Oh, we got to go take blah, blah, blah home. We got to take our dates home." I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go somewhere else, because my night's still young. I got this tuxedo till tomorrow.
Go do your thing. Exactly. Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's the way.
So it made me realize that. It made me appreciate, like, what? Maybe I didn't really need this person to go with. Maybe I didn't. Like, you can see the prom picture. I'll find it. I'll dig it out somewhere. It's me and my group of friends. I'm the fifth wheel or the seventh wheel in this group. And then there's one with me by myself. And then it's like, I appreciated that one with me by myself, because it gave me a different look on how certain females are, right? It's like, you got your females that are always needy, that wants you to do everything. Then you got the ones who are just using you just to try to get what they want. And this is exactly what this person wanted. She just wanted to get into the prom. She wanted someone to pay for her ticket. And as soon as she got there, I think no matter who she went with, she was cutting out.
Yeah. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. Whoever you were the impetus for her to get to wherever she needed to go. Yeah. And I understand what you're saying there. I had a thought about that and now it's flown right out of my brain. But that's what it was. And we still do this. Everyone does this. There's a interesting book. It's a little outdated because it's I think written in the 50s, but it's Irving Goffman's, I think the title is The Image of Self in Everyday Life. And it's about the faces that we put on. And this will all make sense. This is all going to tie into the Little Man's podcast, I promise. But it's the faces that we put on for others in order to get the desired reaction or the desired respect or what, for example, if you work in a restaurant, let's say we were servers in a restaurant, we go to the table and we smile and we do everything. Yeah. But if the people we're serving are pains in the neck or whatever, we're going to go in the back kitchen and go, oh my God, I'm going to spit in their food. And I'm not encouraging spitting in the food. So whoever watches this or listens, don't spit in anyone's food. But we put on a face, we put on a front. And so whether it be, your date, whether it be, the teachers we had in high school, whether it be, our significant others, our spouses, our best friends, our coworkers. Yeah. We have a different face.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
For each situation. And where that ties in as a little person is, and I'm going to address something that has come out how many times to me is, they call it the angry dwarf syndrome. Oh. And what? And I think that we can lead into True Colors if you're cool with that. I think we can lead into True Colors totally with this premise of we all have everyone. Nobody is unique or exempt from having unique circumstances and things that we deal with internally. Okay. And some days are wonderful. Some, life is a mess at times, and you feel like never getting out of bed in the morning. Some days I'm just going, forget it. I want to pass this day. But we all have, different challenges and struggles, and that's just human nature. That's just existence. And the reason I mention angry dwarf syndrome is I think that, and I'm not speaking for everyone. I always want to make that disclaimer. I can only speak from my own experiences. I think that there are many days where you go, okay, I have these things I want to accomplish, and I'm, conquer my schedule for the day, or I'm looking forward to this, whatever. And yet I also have this shell, this body, and you can't ignore that. You can't say some days are easier. Absolutely. And I don't want to go down the woe is me trail. I don't want to go down, life is so hard that I don't want to exist. That's not it. It's just, there are days where your shell or your exterior is brought to your attention by the outside world or by others more so than you hope for. And it becomes a distraction. Yeah. And so the reason I said the whole angry dwarf thing is that you're so I guess I'm really serious in many ways. And I don't, try to be, and people say, I have a very dry sense of humor. And I think that's conditioned over time. Yeah. Where you become callous to so many things because you have to, in order to not go insane as a person with any type of challenge or physical difference or any type of unique characteristic. And so the angry dwarf thing is I'm thinking all the time, and I'm not saying that I'm some type of great intellect. I'm just always spinning about what needs to be done, how to, especially if you have children, you're always thinking, okay, I've got to get this done. I've got to get this done. And I've got to, make sure the kids have this. And so my resting face, I heard Sebastian Maniscalco, the comedian, talk about his wife said he has a mean resting face where it looks like he could kill anyone or kill someone at any second. Yeah. And for little people, or for, I want to speak on behalf of my, self as a little person, is that it's unintentionally taken that, I think there's this, I'm going to probably trip over my words on how to describe this. I think that there's this observation just subliminally from the average individual, and they see you and they go, oh, okay, we're already judging and categorizing. We talked about this last week based on size, and okay, you must be of this. And so then when you come off as like this, which I do, I guess, more often than not, and try to work on. But when you're just in your zone, you come off as this pissed off dwarf or this pissed off, person with dwarfism, and it's totally unintentional.
Yeah.
But then it sets a mood. It sets a vibe. I had a movement instructor in grad school, and she was very good. She was super intense. She was very good. And I came into the movement class. They were always in the morning, which is 8 o'clock in the morning. We're going to do movement class. It's like, can't we do these in the afternoon? Everybody's loosened up.
Yeah.
Their heads are in the right place. But I think it was actually the best thing for me, because it got you going, it got you moving, and it really started putting all of your olfactory senses to the test. And so I was not in the bed. I was pissed off about something, as anybody would be, just a regular day, just not your best day starting out of the gun. Okay. And at the end of the class, and I'm just going to say what she said. At the end of the class, she said, "Aaron, I'd like to speak with you." And I'm like, "Oh God, what?" I'm already, my day sucks. And it's only like 8, that class was like 8 to 10. So it's already, it's 9:55 in the morning, and I'm going, God, I want this to be over already. She said, "I don't know what it is about you." This was from her mouth. She said, "I don't know what it is about you. There's some type of energy that if you're happy, if you're on top of the world, everyone around you feeds off of that."
Yeah.
And they're happy. And if you're not, if you're really hating whatever's going on in that moment, you can bring an entire room to its knees.
Oh, wow.
Without even talking. Now, here's the part that hit me right in the face. She looked at me point blank, and she goes, "And you did that this morning and fucked up the entire class.
Oh, wow.
So can you not do that tomorrow?"
Wow.
And so it was like, the reason I mention any of that is it puts everything into perspective of what effect you have on a person.
Yeah.
Just in physical presence, without even talking, without even saying anything. And people they're judging, and they're comparing, and they're using their eyes and ears and senses. And when we're in a room with people, we can say nothing at all, and yet a vibe can already start.
Yeah.
The whole idea of I yawn, you yawn, whatever, that reflex reaction. But there's something very important about that, and especially as a person with any type of difference or unique quality, is that people pay attention to you.
Yeah. Whether
you want it or not. And so the vibe that you're putting out can affect everything. And that doesn't mean we're all Candyland and unicorns every day. It's not going to be cotton candy all the time.
Yeah.
But those internal vibes have a way of emoting.
Feeling, yeah.
And so the true colors thing, when you think about where we are and being just existing on this planet, it's impossible to say every day is going to be great.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. We all have bad days.
Always, yeah.
But it does give you a measuring stick of which to analyze and to observe and put forth your best, and say, hey, I have a lot of things to offer, and my physical challenges do not hinder my emotional and spiritual and mental capacities.
Yeah.
And so that's, it's, humans are crazy, but the whole, and again, I started with the whole idea of the angry dwarf thing. I get why people say that, but I also think that if they knew you're just trying to get through a day some days.
Yeah.
And you come off as being the asshole when you're just trying to get through the day, and want people just to not necessarily avoid you like the plague, but just let you do your thing.
Yeah.
We all have that where we're just like, can I just get through the day without everybody trying to overanalyze or wonder if I need help? Yeah, when you need help, it's great when there's somebody there to help you. But sometimes overcompensating for that can really drive you nuts.
No, I mean, I totally get it. I mean, I have people that I work with where, you have your group of people that you work with and you're there with them 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day. So you have to find some kind of mutual ground where we all can get along. But then you have some of them who are like, I'm only here for 8 hours. I'm only going to do what I need to do. I'm only going to talk to you if I need something. And the rest of the day, I'll stay out of your way, just stay out of my way. So, you feel those people. And it's kind of like, I'm one of those guys where if I see something's wrong with you, if I feel like something's wrong with you, I'll try to, sometimes talking about it makes things better. So, like, hey, are you going through some issues right now? Is there something that you need to sit down about? Something you need to take time off with? I'm totally here for you. And I'm in the position at work where I can say that to people. So if I feel that and I say, do you need to talk to, our boss and make sure you're good? Most of the time they'll realize, oh man, is my feeling, radiating that bad, like my attitude, is it going out that bad that everybody's noticing that I'm in a bad mood? So they tone it down a little bit. They try to be a little happier, but then you can see the people who just don't want to, talk to you and don't want to be, be part of the whole thing. It's like I said, I'm here 8 hours a day. Stay out of my way. I'll stay out of yours.
Right.
And we leave those people alone. Yeah.
I feel that. And you said two things that really stuck out is that I have the same, I don't know if it's a good quality or it could be an annoying quality. If I sense that, sometimes I need to tell myself, hey, just let it go, let it roll over, especially with my significant other. I don't like bad energy. I don't like, but that's, sometimes it's going to be where we're not in the best of moods. It can't, like I said, it can't always be Candyland, but if there's something on another person's mind and it's affecting their outside, they're emoting, where you can tell, I just can't let well enough alone to not try to step in and help. Yeah. And there have been times where I went, oh God, okay, never do that again. Yeah. Yep. Let's just leave it, drop it, let it go, let it die, just move on, talk, do anything, do something else. And yet, like you said, you can tell, you can sense when things are going on, and you go to your work, and we go to our work and we spend more time with those people than really anyone else. Yeah, we do. At 40 hours a week and or more, or however long each day is, you spend so much time with people that you don't wish them any harm or anything, but you're really after work. Yeah. It's not, if you didn't work with them, how many of them you'd never come encounter with or want to be friends with. And it's nothing personal. It's just we're all different types of people. Yeah. And yet you're immersed with these people in order to make a better good or to make something happen or create a product or service, whatever. We can't get away from that. I've been in numerous work situations where I have to tell myself, okay, I don't really care for a bunch of these people and they don't have to live up to my standards, but we have to put our faces on and do this and smile, and that's really challenging in the entertainment industry. When you're in a project or, film or television series where you don't really, or a theater production where it's a lot longer, usually, where you're working with somebody for how many weeks and then you're on stage for how many weeks. I've been in many moments, and I'm sure there've been people that thought the same of me, where you're like, I wouldn't spend 5 minutes around this person if I didn't have to. And yet we got to put on this face like we are the best of friends or whatever the relationship is in the film or television series. And we got to act like we, adore each other. Or when you don't like each other and you play like you don't like each other, that really helps. It helps. That's a great tool to have. Yeah. But when you have to fake something, it's an even greater test, and we do that all the time.
Yeah.
We do that, not just in the internet. We do that in going to a store. If you want a certain product and you want somebody to help you, and yet they're driving you batty, or, like you said, in your industry, you got to put on a face when sometimes you'd like to, push them out of a window.
Yeah. And I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, like, again, where you are, what you got to do, you got to show us, the viewers, that I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm acting this out. And then later on, we'll read in the tabloids, like, Aaron didn't really like working with so-and-so, and truth is coming out. I mean, but in my line, it's like, I try to tell these new people, like, hey, I know we're in healthcare, but it's customer service base. If you're going to treat somebody bad, they're going to notice, they're going to go reach out to someone, and we're going to get dinged for that, because it's customer service based. We got to smile, we got to put on a good face, we got to fake it till they leave.
Yeah. And word of mouth is huge. We know this. I mean, you would rather take your best friend's advice on whether or not to buy a certain vehicle than the commercial or advertisement.
Exactly.
And now with social media, things spread so quickly.
Yeah.
We know about, if this is good or bad, things that could happen in San Francisco this morning, right now.
Yeah.
40 years ago, I may not hear about in Atlanta because it could be minuscule.
Yeah.
But with social media and everybody having, this device to put words out on how many different mediums, in how many different formats, we could know that some person ran over someone's dog, which isn't going to make the news.
Yeah.
But somebody talked about it, and then somebody else talked about it, and then someone else talked about it, and it goes so quickly.
Yeah.
What I find to be interesting about that is usually the good stuff never goes so quickly.
Yeah. Always.
That's what really bothers me, is that when you have something that's good or for the greater benefit of others, those things never go really quickly.
Yeah.
It's the bad news. It's the dredge. It's somebody, dragging somebody through the mud, or some type of physical altercation that ended up horribly. I'm not going to name any one digital format because I don't want anybody coming to sue me, but where it's like bits and pieces, and people, you see two people clubbing the ever-loving snot out of each other, and somebody captures that, and then we see it. We all see it, and we all are like at a car accident. We're right there. We want to know what's going on. That stuff spreads really quickly, and it's very much a testament of the human psyche and what we find intriguing and what we really center in on. Yeah. So, like you said, you work in a field where, it's medical, but it's service-based, and it's also based on, they could say, somebody could come to your business and go, oh, I had a horrible experience. Yeah. I'd never go back there. They say that to people. Yeah. Guess what? Chances are those others aren't going to use your service. And not only that, then put it up on this thing, and boom. Yeah. How many people know about it in milliseconds?
Yeah, right away. And the funny thing you mentioned about the news is, I have a friend who's an anchor here in the Bay Area, and she stated, whenever you watch the news, do you ever notice, and I never noticed this till she told me about it. She's like, do you ever notice it's always the negative stuff first? Like the first 15 minutes, it's always negative. And then they always end it with, oh, on a good note, this person saved this.
Right.
It's like, why do we got to wait 30 minutes to hear the good news?
One good note.
Yeah. When it should have been
we have 29 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And I totally agree. The news, the news brings all negative things, even on social media. Like when we're watching something on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, it's always someone getting robbed. Oh, this person's getting carjacked. And you're right. We're glued to it. We're like, oh my God, what happened? I
want to tie this in, if I may. I want to tie this into the idea of what we were talking about today with True Colors. I want to address that sub story you told me about, the friend and the parents. I want to get that out, please. I also want to just quickly say, and this goes back to the stuff that's been out a few weeks ago about, a remake of a film and the impression that is given as a little person, and each to their own. We're never going, this, you've experienced this too, as a man of Filipino descent. People make assumptions based on your gender, based on your race, based on your size.
Yeah.
And I mention all that only to say that as a little person, if people see one little person doing one particular thing, they assume every little person does that thing or is exactly that same way.
Yeah.
And so the reason, for this topic today of true colors is that, unfortunately, because there are so few, people with skeletal dysplasia or some form of dwarfism on the entire planet, we really do have this inherent responsibility, whether we want to accept it or not and admit it or not. We have this inherent responsibility to put, I hate to say it this way, it seems so juvenile, to put forth our best impression. And that old saying, you only get one, the first impression is, the most important or the worst impression, and I think that's my saying. I always say the first impression is the worst impression, because we put up these facades and we put up this, what we hope people will think of us. And we want to be great people. I mean, I think it's human nature to want to be a good person. I hope it is. Sometimes that doesn't always work for others, but we put up this facade with the hopes that people will think the best of us. And this leads back to the angry dwarf thing, where as a man of 4 feet and 3 inches tall, whether I want to admit it or not, I'm always trying to impress upon people that I'm a capable, competent adult. Yeah. That might be my own insecurity. It probably is. But when you have so many interactions where you feel like you're being underscored or like you're being considered, incompetent or less than because of your stature or because of your physical appearance, it becomes exhausting, but it also becomes a continuous mission to go, hey, I'm just trying to be considered an adult man. Yeah. Okay. I've said this before to people, and I said, people don't even look at me as a white man. Race is not what they're looking at when they see Aaron. Male is not what they're looking at when they see Aaron. This little creature, what's he about? What is that creature about is what they're, and not everyone. I mean, people go, oh God, Aaron, you make everyone out to be beastly. I'm not saying everyone. I'm saying just a complete stranger. If you asked 100 strangers who are looking at a person with dwarfism or a person, whatever different challenge, what stands out first, they're not probably going to list gender. They're not going to list color. They're going to list physicality. Yeah. They're going to say, well, that's and more often than not, they use the term midget, which we've talked about, right? We've addressed that on the show.
I think we talked about that off air.
Well, we'll talk about that, because that's part of true colors as well. That's the first thing that comes into the brain. Is that, oh, look, there's a midget, or they don't say dwarf as much as they use the term midget. And midget is, let's address it. I want to address it now if you're okay with it.
Yeah, go ahead.
People ask, well, why is that word offensive?
Yeah.
In general, anytime a human being is being categorized or defined by one word, that's offensive.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, color, gender, sexual preference. When you're using a word to categorize a human being, you are so boxing them, and that in itself is offensive. So people go, well, what do you want to be called? And I think the running line for most little people is, I'd like to be called my name.
Yeah.
My name is Aaron. I'd like to be called that. Why midget is offensive to some, people go, well, some people don't like little person. Yeah, it's very subjective. Each person, again, if we just got rid of the names and just said, well, your name is Aaron and I'll just call you Aaron, I'd be like, Hell yeah, let's
Thank
go
you.
with that.
Exactly.
But the term midget comes from the term, it's derived from midge, and midge is like this small little insect that dwells in dung.
Oh.
Okay. So the idea of being diminutized to one word, and that word is midget.
Yeah.
It dehumanizes you immediately.
Yeah.
It takes the whole idea of being a Homo sapien off the books.
Yeah.
If we're going to go into Darwin's wonderful world.
Yeah.
And now you're like not even a primate. You're below them. You're like this little insect.
Yeah.
How would you not be offended by that? How would you not, as a person, go, I'm already being put in a category that is subpar of the human race just by one word. And people go, oh God, you're reading too much into it. And you're thinking, no, it is, you don't say, people don't say to me, oh, you're the human Aaron, or they're in their brain, they're not processing that when they see me. They're going, oh, that's a midget, or that's a dwarf, or that's a very small person.
Yeah. Who's
obviously, insane as you hear him talk more. Aaron's crazy, but that's the big challenge and battle that we still face in 2022 with people who are going, hey, I just want to be considered a human being over all of this.
Yeah.
Okay. Over any other defining term. I just want to be considered human. And I don't want to be treated better than others. I don't want special treatment. I just want the balance.
Yeah.
The old scales in law, I just want this here, not this where I'm above you, not this where I'm way below you, right here. And then let's go forward in life on that same level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Done.
No, totally agree. I mean, we'll go back to high school when I met my good friend Eric, and he told me, don't use that word. And I'm like, oh, and he described it in a way where, like, how, the homosexuals don't like being called a certain phrase. He goes, it's just that bad. It's like, when you say, the N-word to an African-American, that's how I feel when people say, I'm, that word.
Yeah.
And I didn't ever, again, this is the first person that I'm talking to in this format that I didn't realize that it was a bad word till he told me, and he broke it down that way. And I was like, you know what? I'm sorry. And I said to him, I'm sorry for every time I said that word. And when my kids were growing up and they were playing football, they broke it down to, you had your tiny tights, you had your peewees, and then the little ones were, the M word. And I said, wow, that's not a good word to say.
Yeah. Right.
I said that.
What? I think I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to, go back just a hair. You said, you didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't.
And I can't believe I'm using this phrase right now. My significant other would be absolutely to the moon, because she said that this is the first time I've ever heard this phrase was from her. And she said, you don't know what you don't know until you know you didn't know it.
Wow.
And I'm like, when you eat ice cream too fast,
and
your brain freezes. That's right. In that moment, I was like, I did. I'm like, wait, say that again.
Yeah.
And it was very astute, but I needed a second to chew on it. You don't know what you don't know until you know you didn't know it. And again, little brain freeze, and then I went, okay, I can get, I get what you're saying there. That's an interesting way of saying, but it is very true. Yeah. And I've had numerous people point that out to me, and something that I need to reflect on and stand back is, we do use words to describe others. We do use certain terms that, over time we realize aren't the best ways to define a human being. But again, we're learning and that we're evolving, and, any type of term that is used in order to differentiate more often than not will be offensive to somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. And so my default is, and again, I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
No one is. My default is to try to not use descriptive, the words that define or demoralize or degrade unintentionally. There are times unintentionally, we say certain words and go, oh, didn't know, I'm sorry, and had no intention of being offensive. That's the last thing most good people I would think want to do is intentionally offend. And so I do a default of saying, hey, let's not use certain words. And here's the other thing. We do base on character. We do judge people and go, okay, on the outside, they're amazing.
Yeah.
But that person's a complete asshole on the inside. Yeah. Okay. Vicious and ruthless and degrading. And, that to me, I mean, I will never, ever be able to stop judging a person's character.
True.
And I'm not flawless where people probably said, God, he's a little asshole. Yeah. And I've been that. I know I've been that at times. And shame on me and learn from that and be a better person the next day. But yeah, what you said about, we don't, for most people, you're not intending to be offensive.
Yeah.
For most people, there are some people out there that I think are just ruthless and don't care who they hurt or who they offend, and will go back at it. And I pity them, because I think those types of people really have to step back and I wouldn't want that existence to be that negative and malicious that, you're okay with throwing words out there. You had mentioned, and I'm going to jump back to this too. I will admit that when I was younger, I don't know why it just became something natural to think that if I were to have a relationship someday with another person that would become, your soulmate or whatever phrase you want to use for the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, that it had to be a person who was also had dwarfism.
Yeah.
And, we talked numbers in the first show, and I don't want to get back into the numbers, but at the end of it, it's very limiting. If you think there are only so many people on this planet who have some type of dwarfism, and that has to be your person.
Yeah.
Imagine just in the US, I said, I remember saying something to the numbers of like, there's maybe less than, in between 8,500 and 9,000 people in the US who have some type of dwarfism. That's really people go, oh, that's, but imagine choosing from that. And then you live, in Iowa. I was raised in Northwest Iowa. I didn't see another little person in the flesh until I was 14.
Oh, wow. Wow.
14. I was in 8th grade. It was a grocery store in that little town next to the little town. Yeah. We didn't have a major grocery store. We had a grocery store, but there were two bigger grocery stores, 10 miles. You had to go 10 miles to get to the bigger grocery stores, if you will. And I met that. Yeah. And I was with my grandmother, my late grandmother, my father's mother. And we were in the grocery store, and my grandmother noticed this person first. And then she made and I commend her for this. I commend my grandmother for all of her quirks and quirky characteristics. She made an attempt to open that door, and it was very uncomfortable for me at first. I mean, here you are, you're granted it was an older woman who was a little, the other little person, but it was kind of mirror-esque, where you're going, and time kind of froze, where it's like, is she? Oh, she's kind of, oh, I'm like her. She's like, oh,
wow.
And so there was that really, exactly. There was that wow moment. And again, time literally froze for me in that moment, where I'm like, okay, do you act like this isn't happening? Do you go down the next aisle and avoid, or do you address? And woman's name was Denise. I still have in contact with them. Denise and her husband live in Minnesota. They have 2 sons who are grown and have children, and they're both average size.
Wow.
Which we can talk about. I would love to cover that before we finish, just statistics. But it was a good eye opener for me. It was a good moment to go, all right, I'm facing what I've had, that I've dealt with as a little person all my life up to 14, which is not like I've been, around the world that many times yet.
Yeah.
But it was a very jolting and very good icebreaker for here you are. That being said, like I said, there's under 9,000. So I find it very limiting, and I'd love to talk about this in the next show as well. I'd like to talk more in depth about relationships in the next show and reality of that. Starting with like college, we're getting past the prom and high school years, and the idea of maturing and relationships in college and thereafter. But it's really limiting to think whether you base it on race, whether you base it on gender, whether you base it on a particular physical disability. If you put that parameter on it, Eric, and go, I must be with another little person. And yes, there are many great little people out there. I'm not trying to degrade the little people or be the spokesperson. Try a little person. That sounds really bizarre. Sorry. But if you have that limitation, it really prevents you from seeing other people. It really prevents you from discovering other people. It really puts it, I sound so cliched. I'm sorry. It puts you in a box.
Yeah.
It puts you in a box. I was talking about this before the show started. We did a film festival, or we were invited to a film festival for the Little Tin Man out in Texas, in Austin, based on physicality, or based on, disability. And I spoke with one of their organization reps who opened my eyes in a matter of seconds, because I was going through a divorce at the time. And he said, I see so many relationships in the disability world where 2 people come together because they have the same type of disability or challenge.
Yeah.
And that's all they have in common. That's it. And they expect that to work.
Yeah.
They expect that to be enough. And he said, they're setting themselves up. I pity them, because they're setting themselves up for failure, because they may have nothing else in common.
But that, yeah.
I actually was asked that once, not to bare my soul too much, but I was actually asked that when I was determining whether or not I wanted to continue in my first marriage. And the person asked, besides having 2 children together and being a little person, what else do you have in common? And that hit me right in the face like a ton of bricks. And no, malice wished to my ex, whatever, but it was very eye-opening.
Yeah.
Where you go, okay, did I base this relationship on, or did I get into this relationship on that premise and hope that premise alone would keep us, together? So there's a lot in those true colors in that. Yeah. Tell me about, I've talked enough. Tell me about the friend you had, or the person who, that was a prom thing you said.
Yeah. So, I reached out to one of my coworkers and I asked her, and she's Korean descent. And I said, hey, we're going to talk about prom stories in our next podcast. This was last week. And I said, do you have a prom that you want to share? She's a little bit older than me, a couple of years older than me. And she goes, and I said, did you go? And I said, did you go with a white guy? Because she's adopted from Korea. Her parents are white, or like German descent white. And she said, believe it or not, and it blew my mind when she said this. She goes, believe it or not, I went with a Filipino guy. And I said, oh, why is that? Then she said, my parents me being Korean, they didn't want me going out with anybody but an Asian person. And they stated Filipino was close enough Asian to me. And I was like, wait a minute. I sat there. I sat there with her for like a good 10 minutes. And I said, wait, your mom and dad, German descent, white, native San Franciscans. Your dad fought in one of the wars. I forget which war he fought in. You were adopted from Asia, from Korea, and they won't let you go out with anybody but Asian. She said, yeah. So she has another adopted Asian sister who is on the same boat. And then she has three brothers and one sister and two brothers from the mom and dad who were the same way. They didn't want them going out with anybody outside of their race. And I was like, okay, I understand maybe, but I'm still trying to figure out why they wouldn't let you go out with anybody other than an Asian culture. She ended up marrying Chinese, and to them that was okay because that's Asian descent. And I was like, make me understand this. Why? And then she stated the dad didn't want her going through issues later on in life. Like they don't want to be typecast as you have a half white child or, you're in this interracial marriage. So the dad, very old school. And I was like, wow, I can't seem to think about, like, you got white parents, and I would assume they'd be okay with you dating whatever, but they wanted you to stick with an Asian culture. And yes, wow. It's
amazing how people think.
Yeah. Yeah. And they weren't racist. I asked them straight up, was your mom and dad racist? They were like, no, because I'm Asian. They adopted me. So I'm like, all right, well, exactly. That look you have right now is the look that I had because I'm still to this day, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. We do that. We do, when you hear something different than your thought process, or you hear something that is outlandish or what we try to rationalize and go, I'm trying to think like that. What were they going for? Why would they think like that? Yeah. I think, the idea of metacognition, which is thinking about thinking. Okay. Yeah. And that you're trying to, I don't want to get weird here, but major minor premise of A, B, and C, a logical constructive argument where what was their thought? What was their reasoning behind this was an okay thought process? Yeah, this was, the one thing that, and I'm not trying to make light of what you just said, but when you said close enough Asian, I was like, can you, yeah. Oh, we're okay with that. That level is fine. But no, beyond that, no, that isn't going to work for us. It really is interesting, the human psyche and how people come about their decisions in life and their convictions and what they stand behind and how impressionable it can be. Like you said, your friend was adopted, and the stipulation is you must stay within your race as far as relationships. Wow.
What's funny is I listened to a Bruce Lee podcast as well. Shannon Lee, who's the daughter of Bruce Lee, mentioned in one of her podcasts that when her grandmother found out that Linda, the former wife of Bruce Lee, was dating a Chinese person, the family flipped. The family did not want that to happen, and Shannon stated that her grandmother said, "I don't want people looking at you and start laughing that you have, a half yellow baby." So I'm not sure if that was my coworker's father was thinking. Like, I don't want people, judging you if you're dating someone outside of your race. At the end of the day, I think of it as he was probably being a dad and just probably trying to protect her from what other people are thinking. I mean, nowadays we look at it and we're exactly what you are. We're thinking about it. Why didn't they let it happen? But you got to remember, this was back in the late 60s, early 70s.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And see, I was, what you just said, I wanted to address that and jump, add to that idea that you have to be concerned or afraid of worrying about whether or not somebody else is going to laugh or criticize your persona, your race, your gender, your whatever. Humans are cruel, and to have to even consider that, there are many moments that I do that even today where I go, oh God, maybe I should do this or not do this for fear of the rebuke you'll get from others. And that whole laughing thing, it's happened to me where I have been in public and people have noticed me and literally start snickering and laugh. And that, I think, is as crushing because you're that punchline. I wrote down, I don't think I said this to you. I wrote this down. I'm working on a series and it's hit close to home as far as the characters. And I said it to one of our producers, and then as soon as I said it, he looked at me and I went, I'm going to write this down. I think I'm going to write what I just said down and I'm going to use it. And what it was is, I'm tired of being the punchline because of my body. I think a lot of people can say that.
Yeah.
This is not just unique to a person with dwarfism. This is universal, and it's unfortunate, especially in the fact that we're supposed to be such a civilized human race in 2022 that people could still use that line and say, "I'm tired of being the punchline because of my body."
Yep, it's the truth.
And I brought this up to you. I wanted to mention this. I had a while back, my significant other, the person literally said this to her face. Oh, I've told this person telling this to my significant other's face. I told everyone that my significant other, would never be with anyone like him.
Wow.
Anyone like him, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, I know what it means, but do you have the audacity to actually say what that means? Like him, what? He's kind of sarcastic. He's a deadpan face kind of comedian. He's a father of 2 daughters. What? Yeah. He has a horrible addiction to chocolate. What kind of like him are you referencing? Oh, you mean like him?
Like him, yeah.
This little man. What other connotative, denotative word you want to use?
Yeah.
Like him. How harmful is that?
Yeah.
That thought process.
Very toxic. Yeah.
It's scary to think that we're in the 21st century, and actually I think many of our thought processes are still medieval.
Oh yeah. I mean, I mentioned this before, 6 years ago we were kind of going the right way, and then, within the 5 years, everything started coming back out, and the true colors of how everybody feels and everybody's thought process started coming back out. And, and that all started with leadership, because leadership was saying that it was okay to do it. And so if I'm going to do it, the whole world and the whole United States can do it also. So yeah, I mean, it's still there. I look at it as it's a volcano. It's laying dormant for the longest time. And when it erupts, and we are the people that, you and I, I'm going through this here in San Francisco. I'm going through this whole Asian hate thing that's going on right now. And, I tell my kids, I tell my parents, please look over your shoulder when you're walking, please. And if someone says, give me your phone, just give it to them. Because I can replace your stuff that's being taken away. Yeah. I can't replace your life. So, I'm going through that. And, I'm looking over my shoulder as, Filipino, but still with that Asian descent that people are looking at as, and being careful. It's scary right now with the world we live in, and people just think it's okay. And
that's why I love that we're doing this podcast together, because you have, as Eric Milanic, you have such your own unique experiences, from the McDonald's DMV man to everything beyond. That's why I'm glad that yes, this is the Little Man's podcast, but we have wonderful things to offer you and I, and so it's very necessary that you share those experiences so that we have a wonderful balance to every show and forth, come whatever comes down the road. We all have unique experiences and the universal concept that we can relate to each other with these experiences and learn from them and hopefully grow from them. That's to me probably, it is the most important thing about all of this, is that no one's perfect. We all make mistakes. Hopefully that we empathize more than we criticize, and that we learn from them and grow from them. That's in this day and age and again, there are many races that have experienced this, unfortunately, where you have to, like you said, currently the thing is Asian hate, where you have to look over your shoulder and be concerned about your well-being and your safety, because there's this unfair and unrealistic connection to what's going on with a pandemic is being used to blame a certain race. How did you get there? How did you come up with this? Whoever's doing this, how did you go, oh, this came from here, this derived from here, a virus, mind you, derived from a certain region of the planet, and so because it derived from that region, that race that's where it derived from is to blame.
Exactly.
Over everywhere else.
It's terrible.
That I'm sorry, I'm having one of those. Do you remember Christopher Lloyd in anything Christopher Lloyd's been in, from Taxi to
Back to the Future?
Exactly. I was thinking of Doc Brown.
Marty!
And I was in grad school once, and we were in this directing class, and somebody said something that everybody was having a hard time grasping. It was just like from way out of left field. And the instructor looked at me and I went, and so I have those moments at Christmas moment where I don't know where to go with that. I don't know how you got there, and I don't know what to say. I don't know. I'm lost, and I'm feeling alone and confused, and I just want to roll up into a ball in the corner and cry. Where this happened, and it got to this. How did it get there? How did you get something so devastating as a pandemic? You derive down to the level of, we can point it at a certain person and we must physically and emotionally attack them.
It's crazy. It's crazy because what we see, and like you said earlier, with cell phones and social media being so accessible and so easy to see what's going on, 10 years ago, this was probably happening, but we never got to see it unless you said the news brought it up. But sometimes it wasn't important enough for the news to say this person got attacked. And now with cameras, everybody taking out their cell phones and everybody with CCTV, we're seeing it more. It's happening, and it's terrible that it's happening. And it got the whole Asian community here in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And I'm just saying the Bay Area because this is where it's happening a lot. It could be, there was a couple incidents.
Of course.
A couple incidents in New York. But it's one of those things where we need to be careful as not just Asians, but just everyone else. It's like, the Asians are getting attacked, but then they're doing the same thing with non-Asian people here. You know, it's like if they see an opportunity, and you know, this could be another topic for another subject, but it kills me that we have video, we have footage, but the law that we have, it's like, well, it's not really enough to incriminate them because it's just considered robbery. You know, it's like, well, they assaulted like this person and you're just going to slap them on the wrist with robbery?
Yeah. We should address that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of what I really love about all of what we're addressing, Eric, is the concept of the little man is universal.
Yeah. Yeah.
The little man can go beyond physical. Yeah. And I would love for it to go, but you know, I'm one perspective of that. And so we can, you're another perspective of that. And it's really frightening what we pick and choose as far as what is considered an offense based on gender, based on race, based on size, based on, if it were these individuals, it probably would have a lot more effect. Yeah. But it's not. It's these people, and we don't worry about them as much. So it's just a burglary. Yeah. It's not a hate crime. It's not a physical offense. And you're going, wow, how did you pick and choose that? Yeah. Yeah. So anyway,
Aaron, before we get off, I want to thank you for sharing your stories. You know, like I said, I was humbled back in high school, and having you around right now and you telling your side of the story to let people who are not knowledgeable of what your lifestyle has to go through on a day-to-day, giving them that information, letting them realize, man, you know, I've been really cruel these past years by saying certain things about, you know, little people. I got one story before we leave.
Okay.
Eric, my friend in high school, when I asked him about, what can I call you? And he said exactly what you said. Well, my name is Eric. Your name is Eric. So why don't we just call each other by our names? All right. Fair enough. But there was this one, you know, stupid guy in high school who kept calling him little person. Hey, what's up, little person? Hey, little person. Hey, little person. For the longest time, Eric took it. He was fine. But this guy throughout high school, he went from small to like almost obese, right? So one day, Eric was not in the bad. He was in the worst mood. I don't know what happened. This guy walks in the room and he goes, hey, little E, what's going on, little Eric? And he said, the two little Erics are hanging out together. And then he goes, oh, hey, what's up, fat Chris? And then the guy was like, what?
It probably took him aback.
Yeah, he goes, what? He goes, well, you're calling me little person because that's how you see me as. So I'm going to call you as I see you. So now
and a little harsh, but made a point.
Yeah. Oh my God, that guy
made a point because it's like, you keep doing that to me, and if I return it, it probably, the person was probably taken aback. You know, Chris was probably taken aback because he'd been doing that for so long. But I don't hate to say it, kind of a dose of his own medicine. Yeah. Well, it was a dose of his own medicine.
What Eric
and
said
in so doing,
Eric was like, hey, you said this to me for the past 2 years, and I never said anything to you. I say it to you one time, and now your feelings are hurt. So think about what I went through for the past 2 years.
Well, my feelings have been for the last 2 years.
That you're going through.
And just swallowed it and swallowed it and swallowed it. And finally, enough is enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, that's my story. But I want to thank everyone who's always coming on and listening and jumping on this podcast.
Thank you.
Aaron is very, very active on social media, which, you know, you can follow Aaron Beelner on his Instagram page. You can follow us on the Diary of the Little Man's podcast on our Instagram page. We're also now available on YouTube if you guys want to watch it and not listen to it. We just got approved to be on Apple Podcasts, which is cool.
Awesome. Awesome.
Google Podcast, we're on Anchor, we're on a lot. Just check out the link on the Anchor app and you can Spotify us all you want. So, but thank you guys for listening. Next week, we'll definitely be back on unless what this.
Yeah, we're doing it. And Eric, if I may, I always like to kind of give a teaser of I'd like to talk about like relationships. I'd like to talk about, and I haven't had a ton of them.
Yeah.
And I make a joke of that in my one person show, which I'd love to address as well. Because my one person show is a little more blunt than what we've been, and maybe we get a little blunt here and there.
Hey,
but my one person show talks about. I always make the punchline: dwarfism is the best form of abstinence, and so we'll talk about that. But I want to talk about relationships. I want to talk about the things that I realized in going into a relationship, and then also that were brought to my attention from. Because my significant other is average size, or not a little person, and so and it wasn't just her; it was the people around her, and the things that were like being brought to her attention. I'm like, oh wow, oh wow. So let's jump into that.
Yeah, and I have a funny story. You have to remind me. It's not funny. Okay. It's very it's terrible on my end, but I have a Hawaii story to tell you. When I spent a little time living in Hawaii, that made me the biggest a-hole in the island of Hawaii. So that's something we can talk about next week.
Let's open with the Hawaii story next week.
Oh man, shoot me down. She better not be watching. That's all I got.
Okay. All right, we're doing it. All right, man. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you guys. Go ahead and again follow us, listen, and if you guys have any topics, any things you guys want to share, go ahead and share it with us. Again, share it on our Instagram page, or we're available at the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast at gmail.com. Thank you guys. See you guys next week.
Adios.
See ya. You've been listening to the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast.